Imagine creating like a highly specialized masterclass designed to completely rebuild someone's professional identity,
Right.
but doing it in 3-minute increments.
Yeah, which sounds impossible.
It really does. And now imagine that out of the entire cohort that started this class, only 4 people ever actually finish it.
Wow. Just 4.
Yeah, exactly 4. So welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at a hidden, really fascinating corner of the internet.
We are. And, we aren't analyzing some viral sensation with millions of views today.
No, not all.
We are pulling from a highly unique set of sources. We're looking at the metadata, the syllabus progression, and really the underlying human story of a hyper-niche, unlisted YouTube playlist.
So for context, the title of this playlist is Curso de Inglés para Pastor,
Right.
which translated from Portuguese means English course for pastors. And the source material we have is just this 13-video playlist.
It was last updated fairly recently,
Uh-uh.
right? January 28th, 2025.
Exactly. And it has a peak of 135 views on a single video. That's it.
Yeah, 135 views.
On the surface, you, the listener, might wonder why we are dedicating our time to something with so little traffic. I mean, it's tiny.
It is.
But the data embedded in this course tells a massive story about human ambition versus, well, human reality.
Actually, the low traffic is probably the most crucial piece of the puzzle here.
How so?
Well, because this playlist is unlisted, it means these videos were not, served up by a search algorithm to random people scrolling for entertainment.
Right, you couldn't just stumble onto it.
Exactly. You had to have the link to find it. So that suggests this was an intimate, targeted cohort of working professionals who actively signed up to learn a monumental skill.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to truly understand the friction these students ran into, we have to start with the mission of the course itself.
Yeah, the description is key.
Right, the source description for this playlist is wildly different from any standard language program. Like, Emmanuel Ceress explicitly states that the course encourages students to, and I'm translating the text here, remain under Christ's care while pastoring their local congregations.
Which is, that is an incredibly empathetic way to open an academic syllabus.
It really is.
It immediately bypasses the standard promises you see everywhere, like become fluent in 30 days.
Right, the marketing hype.
Exactly. The creator is establishing a psychological baseline, acknowledging right up front that the students are undertaking this while carrying an immense emotional load.
Yeah, and it goes further than that, too. The description outlines that the course provides a fundamental understanding of pastoral ministry roles. So it's focusing simultaneously on the study of a second language and what it literally calls the weekly demands of preaching.
What's fascinating here is how that dual focus fundamentally changes the mechanics of the cognitive load being placed on the student.
Yeah. I mean, to put that in perspective, this isn't like opening a language app to learn how to order a coffee on vacation.
Right.
This is like learning a new language while simultaneously taking a master class in public speaking and community management.
Exactly. When you learn a language on a standard app, you're usually mapping simple, concrete concepts. Right?
Yeah, like basic nouns.
Right. You learn the word for apple or train station. Your brain builds a simple bridge between a known physical object and a new phonetic sound.
But this course isn't teaching you how to ask where the bathroom is.
Far from it, no. This curriculum is demanding that these pastors take their primary vocational tool, which is, language used for rhetoric, empathy, theological instruction, public speaking.
Yeah, incredibly complex stuff.
Right. And it's asking them to reconstruct all of that in a foreign tongue.
Wow.
The cognitive load required to process complex, abstract emotional concepts while simultaneously searching for unfamiliar vocabulary is staggering.
It sounds exhausting.
It is. The prefrontal cortex, which handles that kind of complex problem-solving and working memory, gets exhausted incredibly fast under those conditions.
I mean, the stakes are deeply tied to their identity, too, and their ability to care for a community.
And that ties directly back to that phrase of the description, the weekly demands of preaching.
Right.
A pastor isn't just clocking into a spreadsheet. They are writing a fresh, culturally and emotionally resonant speech every 7 days.
On top of everything else they do.
Exactly. On top of counseling the grieving, managing a local organization, and handling community crises. Emmanuel Ceress clearly designed this course with a deep awareness of that specific professional exhaustion.
Which naturally makes me question how you actually design a syllabus for a brain that is already that drained.
It's a huge challenge.
Because you clearly can't hand an exhausted pastor a massive grammar textbook.
No, absolutely not.
You need a highly surgical approach, and when we look at the actual chronological progression of these 13 videos, the pedagogical strategy becomes very clear, but also honestly very jarring.
The progression is highly revealing. It starts off remarkably gentle.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Video 1 is a mere 15-second introduction. And the first official lesson, Allah 01, clocks in at just 4 minutes and 40 seconds.
Then it moves into the foundational building blocks, like ALIS 04, 05, and 06 are dedicated entirely to vocabulary.
Right?
That makes sense mechanically. I mean, you have to lay the bricks before you build the house.
Sure.
But then the curriculum takes this massive pivot.
It does. It abandons general language acquisition entirely and zeroes in on hyper-specialized vocational domains.
Yeah, it gets so specific so fast.
ALA 07 is titled Faith. ALA 08 is Church Service. ALIS 09 and 10 tackled the Bible. And the whole thing culminates in ALIS 11 and 12, which are dedicated to De Vere's two pastors, so the duties of the pastor.
I have to push back on this format, though.
Oh.
Yeah, because when you look at the metadata for the runtimes, they are almost absurdly short.
They are very brief.
Like ALA 07, which tackles the concept of faith, is exactly 3 minutes and 1 second long. And ALA 08, Church Service, is 6 minutes and 20 seconds. I struggle to see how anyone, no matter how dedicated, can learn the English vocabulary for a concept as neurologically and philosophically massive as faith in a 3-minute video.
I see what you mean.
Right. Doesn't trying to compress that much theological depth into 180 seconds practically guarantee a pedagogical failure?
Well, that assumes the goal of the course is deep, nuanced fluency.
Okay.
But the data suggests the creator is utilizing a strict micro-learning model. They're optimizing for survival terminology rather than academic mastery.
Survival terminology.
Yes, microlearning relies on delivering content in focused bursts that fit within the very narrow bandwidth of an exhausted learner's working memory.
I hear the survival terminology argument, I really do. But if you are standing in front of a congregation, survival English isn't going to convey the deep emotional nuance required for pastoral care.
That's a fair point.
You can't just piece together disjointed words when someone comes to you in a crisis. Doesn't this incredibly brief format risk completely trivializing the very theology it's trying to teach?
That is the paradox
Yeah.
of adult education in high-stress fields.
Yeah.
You are entirely correct that 3 minutes cannot capture the nuance of faith.
Yeah.
But Ceress is making a calculated trade-off. For a student dealing with the weekly demands of preaching, a 50-minute lecture on the linguistic nuances of faith isn't just difficult.
Right.
It is physically impossible to schedule. The creator has recognized that a flawed 3-minute delivery of survival vocabulary that actually gets watched is infinitely more valuable than a perfect 50-minute masterclass that gets ignored.
Oh, wow. Okay, so the brevity is a defense mechanism against the students' own lives.
Precisely.
Even the absolute longest video in the entire series, which is all 11 on the duties of the pastor, is only 6 minutes and 53 seconds.
Yep.
It's a curriculum designed to be consumed in the margins of a day, like while waiting for a meeting to start, or while sitting in the car.
Exactly. It is a harm reduction approach to education.
Right.
If we accept that the students are depleted, we shrink the cognitive hurdle to the absolute minimum height.
But that brings up the million-dollar question.
What's that?
If the videos are so perfectly tailored and short to accommodate busy pastors, if the cognitive hurdle was lowered to just 3-minute bursts of microlearning, did it actually work? Because we have the raw data on the view counts, and it paints a picture that is honestly quite brutal to look at.
It really is. The view counts provide a stark map of what we can call the anatomy of digital attrition.
The anatomy of digital attrition, I like that.
It's a phenomenon that plagues almost all self-guided online learning. But seeing it play out into such a highly motivated niche cohort makes it particularly striking.
Let's walk the listener through the numbers from the source metadata, because the drop-off isn't gradual.
No.
It's a cliff. The highest viewed video is the 15-second intro, which has 135 views. This represents the aspirational identity of the cohort. 135 people clicked that link, looked at the screen, and said, yes, I'm going to become an English-speaking pastor.
And that initial click is fueled entirely by dopamine.
Oh, totally.
You get the psychological reward of deciding to improve yourself without having done any of the actual hard work yet.
Yeah, buying the running shoes, but not going for the run.
Exactly. But the moment the operational reality sets in, the attrition begins.
And it begins immediately. A Law 01, the very first actual lesson, drops down to 48 views.
Wow.
Yeah. Before the real meat of the course even starts, almost two-thirds of the class has vanished. The friction of actual learning hit, and 87 people just walked away.
Compounding that issue is the isolation inherent in the medium.
What do you mean?
Well, when you take a physical class, there is immense social friction keeping you in the room.
Oh, right.
To quit, you have to pack up your bag, stand up, and physically walk out of a door while your peers and your instructor watch you.
Yeah, that would be humiliating.
Exactly. The social pressure enforces discipline.
But online, the friction of quitting is practically zero.
Exactly zero. You just close a tab, and when the material gets tough, when they hit OLIS 04, 05, and 06, those foundational vocabulary lessons, the numbers show the toll.
Yeah, the views drop to hover between 15 and 26.
Right. The dopamine is entirely gone, replaced by the rote, unglamorous mechanics of memorization.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I like to think of this as the digital gym membership analogy.
Okay, tell me more.
Everyone signs up for the marathon, right? But by the time the course reaches its climax, the very reason it was created, the audience is all but completely gone.
Yeah.
We talked about those hyper-specialized vocational domains. All at 08, church service, has just 5 views.
5.
All at 10, the Bible, has 6 views. And the ultimate lesson, all at 12, on the duties of the pastor, finishes with exactly 4 views.
4 people out of 135.
It's wild. I really want to visualize those 131 people who didn't make it to the end, because I don't think this is a story about people just being lazy or getting distracted by social media.
No, I wouldn't say so either.
Given the unlisted, specialized nature of this cohort, these pastors didn't quit because they didn't care. They quit because the physical, real-world friction of their lives overpowered the digital classroom.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to imagine the environment in which they are trying to watch a video on English pastoral duties.
Yeah.
They are likely sitting alone at a desk. Their phone is probably ringing because a parishioner is in the hospital.
Right.
The pressure of Sunday's sermon is looming over them. The emotional reserves required to be present for their community are fundamentally at odds with the selfish, isolated focus required to learn a new language.
That is such a crucial distinction. Learning is inherently selfish in the moment. I mean, you have to shut out the world to absorb information.
Exactly.
But pastoring is inherently selfless. The two modes of being are directly conflicting. So when the phone rings, the tab gets closed. The syllabus loses to the reality of the calling.
And that steep drop from 135 to 4 is the visual representation of that exact conflict. It shows that even when a curriculum is built with immense empathy, even when the videos are condensed to 3 minutes to protect the learner's time, the sheer weight of a demanding vocation will almost always win out over independent study.
So what does this all mean for you listening to this right now? Because the odds are you aren't pastoring a local congregation in a second language.
Probably not.
But the mechanics of what we just explored apply to almost every ambitious goal you set.
Absolutely.
Whether you are trying to learn how to code after putting the kids to bed, studying for a certification to pivot your career, or just trying to finish a dense, challenging book, you are fighting the exact same battle of attrition.
The battle between your aspirational identity and your operational reality.
Exactly. We all start at the 135 view level. The door is open, the enrollment feels great, the possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
But the real transformative work never happens in the introduction. The mastery of your specific duties of the pastor, whatever that looks like in your own life, only happens in those lonely, low view count moments at the very end of the journey.
Right. Long after the initial excitement has faded.
Yeah. Long after the friction of daily life has tried to pull you away.
You know, this raises an important question, and it's something I think we all need to mull over.
What's that?
The description of this course, uniquely focused on remaining under care while dealing with heavy, weekly demands. It explicitly acknowledged the emotional burden of the student.
Right. It called it out on day one.
But as the data showed, even acknowledging it wasn't enough to carry the majority to the finish line.
No, it wasn't.
So it forces us to ask, when we design learning programs in the modern world, whether it's corporate training, online university courses, or self-guided tech boot camps, how often do we actually factor in the emotional and professional exhaustion of the human being on the other side of the screen?
That's a great point.
What would true educational design look like if it didn't just efficiently deliver information, but actually engineered a way to actively sustain the learner's well-being through the hardest parts of the curriculum?
Because clearly delivering the right information in 3-minute bursts, still leaves the learner fighting a battle they're statistically likely to lose.
Exactly.
We spend millions optimizing the content, but almost nothing optimizing the environment for the exhausted human trying to consume it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We started by looking at a tiny, quiet room on the internet, but found a massive reflection of how we all struggle with time, ambition, and the weight of our daily lives.
It really is universal.
Keep asking the hard questions, keep exploring those hidden corners, and most importantly, keep your curiosity alive. We will catch you next time.